Hey Kings and Dragons, Ranking 551. We're talking about the future of the Big Ten today. So right now, guys, I was fooling around with teams in my book here for putting them for the NCAA 2024 video game. However, I predicted on this thing at least four of these teams joining the Big Ten. Now, two of them are up in the air. I don't know where they're joining right now. I don't know if Clemson is joining SEC, and I don't know if Florida State is joining the SEC or they are joining the Big Ten. As of right now, some people say that Notre Dame will also be added. So, with that being said, I'm going to show you just a couple of things here. First off, this is what someone showed as the future of the Big Ten. So you still got most of your teams here. You got Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State, Maryland, Iowa, Rutgers, Indiana, Purdue, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, Northwestern, Nebraska, and then you got the new teams: USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, Notre Dame, Stanford, Boston College, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, and then I think the other one is Louisville. Personally, I just don't think that like these last couple of teams, all of them are here. Like Stanford is kind of a weak football program now; they're not that great. It's about kind of money and stuff, but I've always said that if you're joining a bigger team or something, or one of the bigger conferences, like these four teams are going to get bigger exposure and have a higher chance of going to the 12 team expansion. This team right here, Notre Dame, needs to join a big conference. They cannot do it on independent. It doesn't make sense for them to do that anymore because they're not doing that. Now, other teams from the Pac 12 have left. So these four teams are out. And then I think another four teams left. So now they're down to only four teams left, which means the two biggest conferences that we have right now is also Texas and Oklahoma are going to the SEC. Is that if you look at the states, it's going to be Big Ten to the West with these four teams here. Then you got all of their Eastern Michigan and all of these teams, and then you got over there, and then you got I don't think there's Florida or any Southern teams yet, but then you got all of these other teams. You got Rutgers in New Jersey, you got Indiana in Indiana, you got Purdue also in Indiana, you got Wisconsin and Minnesota. So, I mean, I do think that some of it is going to come bite them back in the butt, basically, because some of it's going to be weird. Now, imagine these games. So on the West Coast, imagine a game starts at 7:30 kickoff. Now, if it starts 7:30 kickoff there, it's going to be a 10:30 p.m. game on the East Coast, which is insane and wackadoo because now that's going to mess up even the football players. However, if the game is supposed to start 7:30 on the East Coast and the West Coast game starts 3 hours behind that, the game would start at 4:30, but it would be 7:30 here and stuff. Or if it's 3:30 there, it's 6:30 here, something like that. I don't really know how it would work. They haven't figured out the times yet and stuff and the time zones, but that's for that part. Now, I did want to share another thing here, and this is the four teams that I'm talking about today. Is that I got Oregon, I got Washington, I got USC, and UCLA. Clemson and FSU, I don't know where they're going. Ultimately, this is the future of the Big Ten, but also other conferences. As of right now, I don't know where these two teams are going. However, I did have something written down here where I did have a lot of teams. So this was me just fooling around with potentially NCAA 24. And I said the Big Ten teams that I would love to kick out are Indiana, Northwestern, Nebraska, and potentially Wisconsin. The only reason I'm kicking out those three teams is because they're not good. They haven't been good. Possibly Rutgers as well. They're sucky. Maryland is improving. Wisconsin's okay. But then teams that I would add are Clemson, Syracuse, Florida State, Wake Forest in that division because those were four of the best teams, and maybe UNC occasionally. Then you got the Big 12 with Kansas, who's pretty good, and then I don't know where TCU is and the rest of them. Then you got the independent Notre Dame. Then you got the Pac 12, where it's USC, UCLA, Utah, Oregon, and Washington. And those were the 11 teams that I was going to add. Unfortunately, that's just not the thing. Right now, these four teams, one, two, three, and four, are in legitimacy. These two teams are up in the air. So what does that bring? And I'm sorry about this. I don't know what that does. What does that bring the grand total up to? You guessed it. It's no longer the Big 10. It's the Big 18. And, you know, if you want to go that route, I mean, it's the Big 18. Now, if not Michigan, if the Big 10 adds two more teams towards their thing of the 18 that they already have, plus that, so Big 18 plus two to make it an even, now you got the Big 20, which is really, really tough because now it's going to be like, well, how many teams of the Big 10 are we going to put in? And how many teams of the SEC are we going to put? Oh, sorry, I got Florida State hexed out there. And how many teams are we going to put in as the whole entire thing of the SEC and Big 10, right? There's only 12 teams, right, that can make it. So how many teams do you take? Do you take 14 SEC and then you take four teams for the four best teams and stuff? And then the Big 10, which is still wackadoo, you take four teams from that. And then you take four teams from any other good conference or whoever had a good year. So four teams from, from any other division or conference. I mean, it's like, what are we gonna do here? How many teams are we gonna add? I mean, are we adding, four teams, and you know what I mean? Like, how are we doing it now? Because you got all of these teams and stuff, and it's like, well, okay, Michigan. Let's say Michigan wins the Big 10 next year in 2024. Okay, they win. Now what happens? Who's behind them? Is Ohio State behind them, or you got these four teams front running it for it? You got Ohio State that's 10-1 or finishes 11-1 and only loses to Michigan. You got Oregon and Washington who didn't play Michigan or Ohio State that finish potentially undefeated. And then you got USC and UCLA who finish undefeated. And then you play for a Big 10 championship. Then it's like, well, okay, Michigan went undefeated for the regular season. They lost the Big 10 championship. Who cares at that point? Now, who do you put in? And that's one thing that I am concerned with. Adding too many teams to one conference is going to overload it, and the competition will be better to make it strength of schedule, but it will also be concerning because let's say you add these four teams to the Michigan Wolverines. Now, who else do they play? Because you have to play at least 8 teams in your conference. It doesn't matter if you play West or East. You have to play at least 8 games. So those are 4 games that you already play. Now, you need another 4 teams. So who are you going to play? You're going to play Penn State, Michigan State, and Ohio State as 3 of your games. And then who else are you going to play? Rutgers or Maryland and stuff. Or you could have the whole season be Big 10 play. If the whole season is Big 10 play, that means Michigan could go 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, 7-0, 8-0 up until they go down, and then they lose their last game. And now they are 11-1 in their conference, and 11-1 in Big 10 play, but they're also 11-1 overall as a record. So I don't know what's going on with the future of the conferences and stuff. And I'm glad that I don't have to worry about for 1 year. I can push it off and just focus on Michigan winning a national championship right now, and watching the games and still do my breakdowns. But I just don't know. So that's all I got for you guys. Until next time, don't forget to stay radical. I'll see you in the next one. Go blue, as I always say. But what do you think? Do you think more teams will come to the Big 10? Do you think more will go to other richer environments like the SEC? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.